So, hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 146 of the Master the Mind, Master Anything podcast with me, Dave Cottrell. If you are joining us live on Twitch or you're watching this back at any point, you can see that we are all kitted out in the brand that is associated with the man, Mr. Sam Wren of BBrave Clothing, who is joining me on the show today. Sam, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, buddy. How are you?
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm a lot better than I thought I'd be because I started my stream at like 4 p.m. and it's now 8 p.m. I'm so used to kind of this being 1 hour into my stream at 8 p.m. And because my wife was was out both days this weekend, I just decided to do some extra streaming. So it's been a lot of fun. And because I've been on all day, we've got a nice little crowd, so we might get some stuff in the chat. If anyone does want to ask Sam or myself a question while we're on here, please do pop it in the chat. We'll come to that occasionally. I won't be coming to it in line because that'll make for a really terrible interview, but we will come to that occasionally. And if you are just listening back on the podcast and you want to know what the hell we're talking about when we say catch us on the stream, you can catch a lot of podcast episodes now live on twitch.tv/mindsetbydave. So that's my plugin done. And we'll move over to plugin. A lot of people on my stream will have, and on my Instagram will have seen me in this glorious purple Be Brave t-shirt.
Isn't it just?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful, and I believe also you're the man behind making the 100-to-1 stuff as well. So Mounty designs it, you do the printing, and yeah, that stuff is absolutely glorious as well. So big fan of your work. Wear it all the time. So what, like Mounty told me that you've that there's a very good story behind the brand, and I don't know it. And I thought, I was so tempted to just reach out and say, what's the story behind the brand? But I wanted to actually hear it for the first time when the audience hear it for the first time. So let's start with the story behind the man, and then let's go into the story behind the brand. Who is Sam Wren?
Okay, cheers, man. So I'm, as you say, Sam Wren. I run BBrave Clothing, and sort of growing up, I think it's quite sad to say, really, that when I was about 14, 13 maybe, it was sort of, or 12, 13, somewhere around there, it was the first real understanding of what mental health was for me.
Yeah.
Because my sister, Amy, had struggled quite a lot with her mental health, and being at school, she was a couple of years younger than me, so being at school, she found it quite difficult, but luckily we're both at the same school. Yeah. So I was able to be on hand if the teachers would need any support, or just if she needed some support, they would literally come and grab me, pull me out of lesson, and I'd just spend the afternoon just sitting with her. It was, for her, it was initially like OCD, severe OCD, but around germs and things, which at school is not helped. It certainly wasn't then. And then it went into panic attacks and brain seizures and things like that, which sort of for her must have been completely terrifying. And for me, it was very, well, yeah, it was quite scary as well. But the sort of over the years at school, we got this, how do you say, I don't know, we became closer, and it helped her come through it quicker each time, I guess. But she was also seeing therapists and counsellors, and she missed a lot of school, understandably because of that. And for me and for as a family, we were sort of learning through my sister's eyes what mental health issues could be, or what mental illness could be.
Yeah.
And it got us sort of thinking, as I grew up, as my sister grew up, how could we help? What could we do to raise awareness and sort of help other people understand stuff that they didn't know they needed to understand? Like, we didn't know it was even a thing at that time. And then so we were sort of looking into that. She's fantastic, bless her. She's an actress now, and has been for many years, and still struggles from time to time. But she has become an ambassador for time to change. which is Rethink Mental Illness and Mind, their sort of campaign. She's become an ambassador for them, and we've both worked on campaigns in and around. We're not from London, but we've worked on campaigns in and around London to try and raise awareness on a local level, which is cool. And then I think it was. Stop me if I'm running.
No, I'm not going to stop you at all, because
that's cool. Okay,
this is great. Keep going.
Bless you. Yeah, so then sort of flash forward a few years, 10 years or so, and my own personal experience of mental health was when I sort of my marriage with my ex broke up, and it was my idea. You know, it wasn't my idea, but it was more led by me. I didn't feel like we were in the right place anymore and whatnot. But the mental health side of things was when some people around me, some close friends that I've had for many years, were questioning who I was now. Was I still a good person and all this sort of stuff? And not, I'm friends with them now, and I'm not trying to call them out or anything. I've spoke to them about it, but it's one of those things where you have sort of an identity crisis where you think, I've always been a kind person, I've always done stuff for other people, but now I'm hurting someone else, and it was just difficult. So because my sister had been into counselling and been through quite a lot of different therapists, and over the years had sort of gone through changes, and just geographically, if she's moved somewhere, obviously nowadays you can speak to your therapist on Zoom or whatever, and it's fine. But back then it wasn't a thing. So she would speak to different therapists and stuff, and sort of taught me that if you don't get on with the first person you see or the first person you reach out to, that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not the system that's broke. It's not you that's broke. It's just we just might not get on with each other. It's human nature, isn't it? It's fine. So when it sort of came around to sort of me needing some support, I was well up for speaking to anybody, but I was also I wasn't even cautious, but I was quite aware of the fact that we may not get anything out of this first session. It might not come to anything. So yeah, sort of went in there and spoke to this counsellor, and luckily she was the best thing since sliced bread, and blew my mind within about an hour. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I just opened up so much stuff. It was quite amazing, really, and wasn't a fix overnight. Of course it wasn't, but it was something that I'd hoped I would get from somebody that was external, that didn't know anything about what was going on. And then it was, and then I guess another 5 years down the line where we are now, always wanted to do more and more for mental health, and always done like fundraisers. And you know, when your birthday comes around on Facebook, you put your fundraiser up for Mind, and you put £100 and you raise money, and it's great. And I was like, I want to raise more. I don't want to keep nagging my mates just to keep donating. I was like, there's got to be more people we can reach. And with social media today and how easy it is to network these days, I thought, you know what? I've always loved clothes. I'm always looking for, not for designer stuff, but I'm always looking for the best quality garments. And I've always wanted to, well, growing up, all my friends would laugh because I could go through a whole year at sixth form back then and wear a different t-shirt every day. I had that many different t-shirts.
Wow.
So the t-shirt idea was quite an easy one for me, but it was quite important to sort of look into the quality of the t-shirts as well. And I thought that with social media, it'd be quite an easy way to spread the message, and positive way to get that positivity out there, really.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think your sister's advice there is definitely worth kind of saying again, really, because a lot of people out there, when they don't get the response that they want the first time from the first person, that can be the thing that person might have been building up and building up and building up in order to reach out for the first time. And when the person that they speak to isn't the right fit for them, that can put a person off reaching out ever again. And it's such a sad thing when it happens, especially when a person, instead of reaching out, well, I suppose it's the double-edged sword, actually. I was going to say it's especially bad when someone reaches out to someone who isn't a counsellor, because you're never guaranteed the response you want. You kind of have to have expectations of when you're speaking to that person, that's for you to get it off their chest. And I often say that, I've lived with mental health. Well, I've been living with mental health for 24 years of my life. I was obviously living with mental health before that, but my diagnosis came at 14, and I'm still learning every single day how to deal with myself. So I don't expect other people to. And that's one side when it comes to other people. But actually, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, I suppose if someone reaches out to a therapist on the first go and they don't click with that therapist, that's 100% of that person's exposure to therapy. Like by the time we're adults, we've probably seen like 10 doctors in our lives, and we may have found some good ones and some bad ones, and we know that there's good ones and there's bad ones and all the rest of it. But with a therapist, if you've gone to one and that's your first experience of it, like I had a business coach in my maybe second or third year when I first started my business, did not enjoy the experience one bit. I would not go to another business coach now because of my exposure to one business coach. That and the fact that they all want me to like sell harder and put my prices up. It's like, I'm like, that's not me. That's not what I'm about. I'm like, so if I ever look for a business coach, I'll be like, right, I want a business coach. But if you try and say, stop doing a life a day, stop doing the free stuff, deal breaker, well, that's it. Game over.
Rightly so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's really, really important for people to hear. It's like reach out. And if it doesn't work, reach out again to someone else. And if it doesn't work, reach out again and keep going until you find the right person.
Yeah, because I've had quite a lot of friends. So I'm not a therapist. I'm not. I've always sort of been there for people if they need to talk, and I've always said I can do everything I can, but the best thing is to speak to somebody or a professional if you can. But the amount of people that have sort of opened up to me over the years that are friends that have had a negative experience with a GP or with somebody, that it, luckily, even just my advice of just try again, like this, they'll and somebody gave me the analogy as well. It might have been my sister, I'm not sure, but that said, use a therapy network like Tinder. So if you can't find if you're not happy with your first date, which you probably won't be, that's fine. Just go on to the next one. It's not an issue. It's cool. Don't get 10 of them in a row and talking to all of them at the same time. You just confuse yourself. But just like, it's fine to move past somebody else. So so it was that was quite funny.
Yeah, we've had it pointed out in the chat, and I can hear it as well myself. There's a bit of background noises. I don't think there's anything we can do about that.
1 second. It might be Scarlett. Scarlett, turn that down, please. Sorry.
Oh, okay. It's that's fine.
There you go. That'll be gone. That's
cool. I've just totally and utterly ruined your daughter's day. So, from your experience with therapy, what are some of the kind of biggest insights you've taken away from it?
So for me, I'd seen another therapist before, but it was like a marriage counselling therapist. So it was at a time when I wanted to distance myself from that relationship, and I'd made my mind up and whatnot. So being forced or feeling like I'd been forced into, I don't know if it was just me being stubborn or it probably was, but either way, me feel like I've been forced really didn't work. And for me, one of the biggest things was when I was ready, it worked really, really well. It was a different person. It could have been completely fine either way. But for me, when I felt like I was forced or pushed into something that I didn't want to do or speak to somebody that I didn't want to speak to, then for me, I didn't let it work.
Okay.
And I didn't open up. I didn't let anything out that would help, because I'm quite stubborn anyway, which in business is quite good because I get in ways it's good. But yeah, I at that point I was sort of not interested. But then when I'd actually thought, you know what, I actually do need to speak to somebody, and it's for myself, and it's just to improve, just to clear things up in my head and try and work through things. It was how, you know, sort of walking in through that door, and I hadn't really told her anything before I got there, and sort of going in through the door and saying, you know, what do you want to know? And being completely open and completely not expecting the world to change, but being open to it possibly doing that, or it being, just being open, I think was the biggest thing, that even got anything out of the session. Just comparing it to the previous one that I'd had, you know, it was when you're ready to open up, then, you know, you're going to get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say that, like with therapists or even with doctors, you've got to be as open as you can, preferably 100%. I know that's hard for a lot of people, but they're not mechanics. They can't just open up the bonnet and look at the engine that's underneath. They can only go off what you tell them. And yeah, a good therapist will read between the lines, but if you can kind of explicitly tell that person what you're thinking and what you're feeling, or how certain thoughts have helped you get to those feelings, or whatever it might be, that person's going to be able to help you so much quicker. They're going to be able to help you to help yourself so much quicker, because ultimately they might hear things or see things in that were really kind of hiding very finely between the lines in what you were saying before, or that you may have never, you know, told to anybody. It's one of the things I actually help clients with sometimes, is what to say to your doctor, because they go in and they tell the doctor they're fine, and my clients will tell me that they're fine all the time, and you know, my training on that is, can you explain that fine, please? You know, like, it's like, let's get a little bit deeper into that fine. But if you that's the whole thing. If you speak to someone like me, who, as well as kind of your session, you're probably going to be able to reach out to on social media and all the rest of it, it's different with your doctor. You get that one sort of 10-minute gap, and if you go in and say, I'm fine, they're going to go, okay then. And then, so
what do I need to see you for?
So like, I think there's a lot of fear there. You know, people think like the old stereotypes are, we're going to get bundled off to the loony bin or whatever. Or we're going to someone's going to put a straitjacket on me. Like, that's the type of thing that, like, my mum would say when I was a kid. Sorry, mum. It's like, I'm grassing you up, but to be fair, it was like 30 years ago. So people's it's okay that your views on mental health were a little bit out of touch with now, because they are out of date. So, so when you set up BBrave, what's the ethos and the mission behind the brand?
So for me, so the brand itself is run mainly by myself, but by my partner Stacey as well. She does a lot of sort of behind the scenes sort of stuff. But the idea and the ethos behind it, the mission behind it, I guess, is that we've got she's nearly 4 now, but a 3-year-old daughter. And we sort of, I don't know if things change in your head when you've had kids. It certainly did for me. I wanted to do more and more and more. And I wanted to educate more people, or help people reach out and help other people tell their stories, and talk about mental health, so that the next generation doesn't suffer in silence. And that's ultimately what we wanted to do. And we sort of started it out by asking people if they were ready to share the story, because I know what that's like. If you're not ready, it's pointless asking. But if you're at that point where you are able to share your story, we wanted people to use our platform to be able to share their story, show the community that what it means to be brave, what they've done, that even if it's, you know, for them it might be something, getting out of bed today was the bravest thing they've done all week. And it's not, somebody may have, this is the other thing, somebody may have it worse than you, but it doesn't mean that your struggles are invalid. So it's sort of going off that it's okay, whatever you might be struggling with or have struggled with, it's okay. And, you know, talking about it is sort of one of the first steps that can help you, and help others understand that there's a community out there, and there's many people out there that that may have been through something similar, may have struggled, or that that for the people to reach out and see if they can help, or if they can just talk to people, or things like that. It's quite a lot, but mainly so that the next generation doesn't suffer in silence, I guess.
Okay. And what do you do as a brand to try and achieve those goals?
So we make lovely t-shirts.
Well, I know that bit.
So the idea behind the clothing side of things is so that it's something bold, like the one you've got on is the original BBrave t-shirt. I should have had written on it "Be Dave." That would have been cool.
I do have a custom one from you, a Mountie that says "Dave, don't save," cool. As I'm sure you're aware. But yeah, it's one of my most prized possessions. It's like I don't want to wear it. I mean, I've wore it a lot, but I don't want to wear it because I don't want it ever to kind of
wear out.
Yeah, I don't want it to wear out.
So I wanted it to be something like the brand side of things, like the top that you've got on. Is something that people can see from a distance. It's striking, it's clean, it's clear, that they can have in their wardrobe, that it can remind them of the community that's surrounding BBrave Clothing. So it can, people can see, it inspires themselves to be brave or whatnot. But then also to have to the rest of the world an inspirational slogan on the top, and then what we're doing on top of that is then we're reaching out to different companies, mainly so far has been personal trainers, that have sort of come to us that they want to wear our logos but with their logos side by side. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of not collaborations as in influencers just wearing a t-shirt once. I'm not interested in that, but it's about working together with companies or people, as well as individuals that get the ethos and that understand it and that want to do a similar thing, and then sharing their stories on social media, and which has led us to open up our podcast as well. So
see, cool. Look, you just totally glance over the podcast. We'll come back to that in a sec, because whilst you've just mentioned that, this getting a BBrave X Mindset by Dave t-shirt has been something that has been on my mind for quite a while now, and obviously because you already do purple, and but yeah, there's I don't know if you've ever come across the phrase that I like to use, which is "You are not weak, the journey is just difficult." I've been wanting that on a t-shirt for a very, very long time. So I think maybe not whilst we're on the podcast, but I think you and I need to have a little chat about that at some point.
Yeah, sure.
It should only be available in purple.
Definitely.
I don't know if that ruins things. Okay, podcast. Right, let's talk about the podcast. It's new. It's exclusive. It's fresh. It's so what's the podcast? What's the purpose there?
So for the podcast, so we've been going around a year, the clothing brand, and we've shared many people's stories on our posts, and then we sort of decided that, or we started having people saying, I'd rather talk about it than write about it. A lot of people were happy just to write, and they would prefer it to be almost like a mini article sort of thing, and that was completely fine. And then once we'd posted that and we got quite good, or quite a lot of people just either messaging them saying, I've been through something similar, can we talk? And sort of just bringing that awareness up. A lot of them were like, well, now I've written about it, I feel like I'm ready to talk about it. So it was like, oh, okay, cool. So we did a couple on Instagram TV, or IGTV, and they were great conversations, great people. It was really good fun. Because I was trying to do it as talk about what they've been through, but then sort of the positive sides and where they were, to try and inspire people that if you're at this point, you can get to this point, and it's all, it's not all positive, but it's motivational at least. But then listening back to the IGTVs, the connection was rubbish. The internet was terrible. My app dropped out, their app dropped out. And it was just, I didn't want to waste such a raw conversation, and I thought, you know what, Dave and Mountie, they've got their podcast.
Mountie's not got his yet. His is to be released in what is it, the 17th of August, Mountie?
It's close.
It's close.
Yeah, it's coming up.
but yeah.
And so I just wanted a clearer way to talk to people that could be listened to nicely, and that could be. I do a lot of driving, so I'm driving when I go down to the office. Obviously, lockdown's different at the minute, but for my day job, it was driving down to the office, which was like a 2-3 hour drive each day. So I did a lot of driving, listened to a lot of podcasts, and I thought that the stories that people are telling me and sharing with me, I would personally love to listen to whilst I'm driving. So maybe other people would as well. And that's where What It Means to Be Brave podcast sort of came from.
Yeah, awesome. I've not actually listened yet because I'm only just getting back into driving now. Like I've been sat behind this computer. I've hardly listened to podcasts for weeks, and when I finally got back in the car, I had an audio book. I don't know if you've ever listened to Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Very good book.
Okay.
I've just finished that, so I'm now back onto podcasts as well. But especially because you had Ryan on, I think, recently.
Yeah.
Love that dude. Got a lot of time from him. And you know what? From all the experience I've had in the mental health industry, it's weird. Sometimes I wish I didn't have formal training, because I will go and watch people who don't have any formal training, but they just have a story, and that story, without kind of trying to talk about a technique, or without trying to help anyone with kind of a sort of more therapeutic intervention or a coaching intervention, those things connect and they have power and they are amazing. And some of the best speakers I've seen, that they're just up there being raw and telling their story, and there's so much in that. It's like Lydia, who was on the stream earlier. She will listen back to this later. I'm kind of a bit gutted she's not still on now, because I think she'd have got a lot of value from here. And you talk about your sister's journey with OCD, because she's still working out her journey on that now, and so it's great that to have a little bit more talk about OCD and things on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I think it's phenomenal to actually have people share their stories. People like think that they've got to have like it all together, or they think that they've got to have the answers, or they've got to be someone like that's got like, coaching qualifications, or they're a therapist or whatever. I still think I need to be more qualified. I mean, I do need to be more qualified. I'm working towards my cognitive behavioral therapy at the minute.
Okay.
Because people don't recognize neuro-linguistic programming, so it's like they're like, what's that? I'm like, it's what Tony Robbins does, and they're like, who's Tony Robbins? And they're like,
no, surely people know Tony Robbins.
No, a lot of people do, a lot of people don't. But yeah, like a lot of people think, and I said this to actually Mountie. Everyone who's doesn't know Mountie is going to be thinking, why did they keep on mentioning this Mountie guy?
This guy?
I know Mountie is coming on mine soon, and then everyone will know who Mountie is. But Mountie's a friend of both mine and Sam's, and I said to him the other day, you don't have to be at the end of the book. You just have to be a few pages ahead of the person that you're talking to. And that's the thing, is that so many people's experiences with mental health, what they've been through and what they've experienced, it actually makes them qualified to well, everyone's qualified to share their story. The end, it's like, you're maybe not qualified to give cognitive behavioral therapy or anything like that, but you're qualified to share your story, and your story within itself has power. We all get so much from fiction novels. And those are stories of people that didn't even exist that have power. How many people were inspired by the characters in Harry Potter growing up? How many people watch 300 and then just basically want to go and kick a Persian into a pit? Don't kick Persians into pits, please. Nope. That's not what we're advocating on this. I also think it's going to be interesting, my podcast listeners, hearing the different energy that comes across on a live stream than the pre-recorded stuff. But what you said then, about the IGTVs, if this whole quarantine thing wasn't happening, I'd be doing this with you face to face, because I love being in the room with the person. I love bouncing off that person's energy. But I am enjoying the fact that we can all still do these things through the wonders of technology with Zoom and with Twitch and with those type of things. So the podcast is just launched with the with the brand as well. There's some of the donations go towards mental health charities. What charities are you supporting there? Because you said obviously rather than just of your birthday every year, now it's a bit of it. What charities are you supporting there?
So right from the start, we said we want to donate a portion of our profits each month or each quarter. But so far it's been each month. But yeah, so far what we're doing is every month donating a portion of profits to Mind Mental Health charity.
Yep.
Because of the support that we've had from them. In fact, my partner Stacey has reached out to them before as well, and because of the work that we did with Time to Change as well, was great. So we support Mind Mental Health charity, and then we also the other sort of side to our brand is that all the clothes that we do are sustainable or eco-friendly. And that goes, this is where my research comes in, and this is where I don't just want to wear a t-shirt. I want to really dig down into what the manufacturer, so we brand the tops up and we buy them from a bigger manufacturer, and they release, or the ones that we've selected, they release each year a document that says this is all of their the factories that they work with overseas, and this is all their child labour policies. Obviously they don't have any children working there is the policy, but they have policies about it. They have equality, so they prove that there is it's actually, I think last year it was 49% men, 51% women working in all those factories out of the 9,000 people that work in these big factories. That that their wages are higher than the average living wage in those countries. That where the organic cotton for the tops is grown on those fields can be harvested all year round for other things once it's outside of the season for cotton, so that the local economy can still grow and can still thrive from the area, and it's not pesticides and all that sort of stuff. So it's not just a label it's eco-friendly clothing because they don't come in a plastic bag. It's that they're she's there. She's just potted in. It's that there's so much more to it, really. So as part of that, we plant a tree with every. Stop. Hey. Sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. Does she want to say hello to the podcast?
Do you want to quickly say hello?
Hello.
You are officially the youngest person to ever be on this show. How do you feel?
Tired. Yeah, it's great.
It's great.
You are tired. Do you want to go back upstairs while I quickly finish this off? You go see Mummy? No, okay, you sit there. Just be nice and quiet. Sorry, Dave.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. This is the real world. Yeah, exactly.
So the other side of it is the mental health side, and then we've got the eco-friendly, sustainable side. And as part of that, we plant a tree with every order as well. So we work with One Tree Planted as a charity to do that.
That's excellent. So in terms of obviously the brand itself, you've got, and the designs, there's things like bravery, and there's things like I quite like the fact that you've got kindness in there. What I want to know is how well does the kindness t-shirt sell with men?
Really good. It's a weird one. I've actually never spoke about this, not even on our own podcast. So with the Be Kind, the idea for Be Brave was the first thing. Be Kind was the second. And where that sort of came from, apart from, and it wasn't part of the rush at the beginning of this year that everybody's be kind always kind of thing.
Yep.
It was quite a long time before that. My dad actually had leukemia, and he's okay now. He's in remission, so he's doing all right, bless him. But the service that he got within the hospital was absolutely incredible, and the amount of kindness that I saw from the nurses, from the people that are in there, from everybody that was sort of around the hospital at the time, because he was in there for quite a while, a good 6 months or so, I guess. It was something that I wanted to think as we'd started producing the clothes and stuff like that. I was like, you know what, we need to push kindness as well. It's great to be brave, and it's different to being kind, and you can be kind to yourself. So I sort of learned while I was in there as well that being kind to yourself and being kind to others around you, just because, was so powerful, and how it could really make someone's day, almost change their life, being brave and being kind. I was like, you know what, this needs to be out there. So once we started doing it on the tops, it's probably 40% I suppose of all the tops we've done are be kind, if not maybe higher. And I think with the be kind stuff, probably half of it is men anyway. Awesome. which is good. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, that is good to kind of see, because it's especially when you go into mental health stuff. There's a very clear divide between not just how mental health affects men versus how it affects women, but there's a very clear divide to attitudes towards it. At least there seems to be. Now, I'm a huge anomaly to all of this because I'm pretty certain I'm not actually a man, but that's why I'm growing this beard as a cover story. Okay. I was brought up by two women, and I think I've basically grown into super feminine qualities in a lot of things. But it's like, I hate to kind of use gender stereotypes because it's 2020 and they kind of seem a bit outdated. But from my experience of working with clients over the last kind of, like, anyway, in a life a day is nearly up to its 1,000th person now. On the 29th of September, it hits 1,000 people. Wow. So that'll be 1,000 people I'll have worked, at least 1,000 people I'll have worked with over the last 3 years. And the split to that is probably about 75% female.
Okay.
In terms of the people that actually come. And then within the 25% male that is there is a very hard divide between, it's either they say, oh, I don't even know if I should be here, my problems are too small, I'm probably wasting your time. And then it goes all the way over to, I'm in full-blown crisis, I'm going to take my own life, and I need help. And there's very few people in the middle. I've worked with a few male coaches, fitness coaches, that just want to add mindset into their clients' work, or want a bit of advice for their own clients and things like that. But with my general population, male clients that come through, it's one of those two extremes. And whereas with the female clients come through with absolutely anything and everything. They'll come through with what they consider to be a small problem. They'll still probably play it down and say, I don't think this is worth talking about. They'll come through with the big problems, but they'll also come through with, like, I've noticed this is becoming a bit of an issue and I just want to get ahead of it. Like, they'll say things like that. And also men, again, except for the ones that are in that position where they're kind of, they're fighting a losing battle, they don't show the emotion to the same level. And they don't talk about things like kindness. They don't talk about self-love or self-care. It doesn't really come up. And I do get the odd person that's like put themselves to the back of the list as a man, but it's mostly women that do that. And I'm fascinated with it because, as you know, especially I've been raving on about kindness since way before the beginning of this year, which was when it obviously, when it came and went within about 5 minutes. It's like, be kind always, unless someone has a different opinion on whether you should wear a mask or not, as you do. Be kind always, unless that person's bought more toilet roll than you think is acceptable. Be kind always doesn't have these unless things. Like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, it is. I'm really excited to hear that. I'm really excited to hear that because I hope that, men's attitudes change. I don't know if you're familiar. You probably are with Alan because you watched the stream that he's on. But like Alan posted a video about how Kanye West and Will Smith have been treated this week by crying in public. And the thing is, we see a bias in social media because trolls are way more kind of enthusiastic to put hate out into the world than someone who's there to literally pour positivity all over everybody.
Yeah.
But still, it's hard to look at that and not think that the attitudes towards male mental health is still in the dark ages.
Yeah, sure.
What's the idea behind the new design then? So the mountains, I mean, I love it and I want one. So what's the idea there?
So the idea behind it is that for me, my sort of over many years now, I've always been involved in sport and being outdoors, and from a young age doing athletics for national championships and stuff, going through to American football in the UK and winning championships here and stuff, and it was always something that getting outdoors and getting those endorphins going and just moving more, and it's something for me personally. I'd always been in a better place when I was either outside or doing physical activity. So when and I love the design for the guys that are on the podcast. I love the design of the simple B with Brave written underneath it, but I wanted something more graphic. I wanted something that told a bit more of a story. So we sort of came up with this new design that's the upside down triangle with trees at the bottom, Be Brave written through the middle, and the mountains across the top, to sort of shout that it's our outdoor collection, but shout that getting outdoors, even if it's just for a walk, just for anything like that, being outdoors can also help. So that's where the sort of idea came from.
Yeah, I literally got a message from a client this morning that said he's been off work for the last week and he's been away camping with his son, and he's like, being outdoors is such an integral part to my positive mental health. And you know, I know exactly what he means. It's like we went walking a few weekends back, and I like being outdoors, but I also like kind of pushing beyond your physical exertion, your regular physical exertion levels. Don't tell my wife that I like that, because then I tell her that I go on walks because there's a brewery at the end of them, which is kind of true. But
that's the other thing as well. So with us, as I said, we'd been contacted by other companies and things like that to want to work with us, which is always awesome, you know, really cool. Even getting invited on podcasts like this, it's like, oh shit, like, this is really cool. So it's really nice. And then about a month or so ago, as we were sort of looking into these designs, we'd come up with somebody got in touch with us, somebody actually that I went to school with, who runs a camping company called Kayam Tents. And they're sort of very high standard, quick erect tents that are very, very good. And he sort of got in touch and was like, we're relaunching our brand, and we've got he's personally had issues with mental health, and he wanted it to be at the front of what they do. And I said, well, that's where we're going with this outdoor sort of range is something kind of similar. So we got talking, and we're now actually going to start putting on camping trips, where we were going to do the first one during the lockdown period, before lockdown happened, obviously.
Yeah.
So we've postponed it a little bit to the end of the year, or towards October. But the idea is that we make like a retreat kind of atmosphere, where people can all get together and go camping, but can also then talk about mental health, or can be open if they wanted to, or they might have therapists there. We might have loads of different things going on, but it might also just be a way to get out for people that want to just switch off and just go for a long walk, or some hiking for a couple of days, or that sort of thing. So it was quite good timing, and we're incredibly fortunate to still be in touch with Nick, and to be able to team up. But it's quite exciting. Yeah,
exciting times. Yeah, I really hope that that comes off, because that sounds like a great thing to do. There's so much value in in kind of finding your tribe. You know, it's like tribalism is not something I've actually talked about on the podcast yet at all. Just because it can be a bit messy, because the thing is, we're kind of taught nowadays to be global and not to be tribal. And it's like, you know, it's like
I love
being,
the tribal stuff.
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly what the community is, isn't it? It's like, I think for us, it's like, even if we've got some people that we started selling stuff, and once we started getting out there more, it was all to our friends and family. So it was very, very tribal then. It was right. Everybody that we know knows about us, and then it started their friends and then their friends, and then we've almost got little hubs. Like, we've got quite a big following somehow in certain areas of Birmingham, and it's almost like they've got their own tribes talking about it, and it's awesome. I love it. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you've got the Birmingham crew. You know, you've got Ryan and you've got Nads there as well.
That's it.
And
yeah.
I'm Mountie, but obviously, like, I'm Mountie's but Mountie's all pushing 100 to 1, and rightfully so, you know. But it's but collaboration, not competition, is kind of one of my big favourite things to actually say. You know, it's like we work with other people, and it was ages ago. You're actually the second clothing brand that's been on the podcast that's mental health organised. I don't know if you're familiar with Boys Get Sad too, but it's funny that for months and months I was like, I can't have another clothing brand on. And I sat down and I'm like, why can't you have another clothing brand on? That's like saying you've had one man open up about his mental health. I can't have another man on. It's like, oh, I had another coach on. I can't have another coach on. It's like no, like, let's you know, we can't. There's a thing within this industry, within the idea that we can all, as we all work towards mental health awareness, and as we all work to kind of raising the flag for mental health, it actually does automatically serve all the other people within that industry, because it gets people thinking about mental health and talking about mental health more. A couple of quick fire questions, and they'll end up not being quick fire now that I've said that. What's the best thing that you do for your mental health?
For mine personal?
Yep.
For me personally is spending more time with Stacey and Scarlett. For me personally, when I can, that's not brand related anyway, is spending time with them. Obviously making the t-shirts and everything we're doing just gives me endorphins anyway. But aside from that, is spending time with them, and actually, even if it's just going for like a long walk or something where we can just get out and about and just have fun, like looking at cows and horses and stuff in the fields around here. It cheers me up knowing.
Okay. Is there anything that you do for your mental health that 10 years ago you'd have thought, oh, I would never be into that?
Yeah, so I think so, because I've read a lot of people's stories and things like that, where people get a lot out of journaling and writing down their thoughts. And I always thought, no, I'd never do that. No, I wouldn't. But actually now I'm going to, and it's something that I'm actually now really looking forward to, which sort of, as I say, sort of 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even bothered, but now actually I'm quite looking forward to it. So yeah, definitely. Cool.
Good answer. What is something that you know is bad for your mental health, but you still do it anyway?
Oh yeah. That's a question.
It's my favourite question at the minute, that.
Yeah, spending money that I don't have, personally, is one of my things that gets me down. It's never, I think, I don't like doing that.
Right. I'll tell you why it's my favourite question. It's my favourite question because people again seem to think that if you work in mental health that you've got it all worked out and you're on top of your mental health 100% of the time and you never make mistakes and that you're a perfect human being. And we're not. None of us are. We're all perfectly imperfect. We're all flawed. And we all, even though it's like one of those things that I think at first I didn't know what was good or bad for my mental health. I didn't have a clue.
Okay.
And then eventually it got to the point where I knew what my triggers were, and I knew what was good for me, and I knew what was bad for me. And then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, I stopped doing all the things that were bad for me. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, certain things are bad for me, but I do them anyway. Now, actually, there's no real benefit to me doing the one that my biggest one is checking my social media stats too often.
Okay.
It turns into kind of the equivalent of body dysmorphia is the only way I can describe it. Like for me, body dysmorphia was assigning my worth to the number on the scales, and checking my numbers on social media too much is like assigning my worth to those numbers. And I mean, I'm sure you're in the same position with your brand, is that, you know, sometimes your biggest fans are the quietest. They don't say anything. They don't, and you never know.
That's
and
it.
then 6 months later, they'll be like, I bought this t-shirt from you guys 6 months ago, and I just wanted to say that I really love what you're doing. It's still great, and I love it. And for the last 6 months, you were like, I didn't hear any feedback from this client. They didn't give us a Trust Pirate review. Trust Pirates are, trust me. Get trust in me. Mounty says, printing teas and talking to him at 3 a.m. instead of sleeping should be your thing, apparently.
Now, yeah. So me and Steve, we probably like you do with him, to be fair. For me, which I've learned, this is one of the biggest things I've learned by doing the clothing, is that any information that you have or knowledge, in fact, should be shared. Mm-hmm. And for I think it was like 5 minutes of running the t-shirt brand at the start, I was like, oh, I've learned something, I'm never going to share it. And I thought, hold on a minute. Take a step back, drop a peg or two, understand where you've come from. You didn't know this 5 minutes ago. And then I was like, you know what? I need to tell everybody. This is like you, with all your content. You feel this extra, you've got more of a purpose than just what you're doing. It's affecting more people.
Yeah.
You can, if I can educate somebody on how to print a t-shirt, and Mounty will get there one day, then I want to do that. And it's not just the mental health stuff. It's everything I do. I want to try and inspire people to, not necessarily, I don't want to inspire everybody to make a t-shirt brand because nobody else is interested. But for those that are interested, it would be cool to try and, like I do with Steve, we're just up talking till he texted me the other day at like 3 a.m, like, oh, when you wake up, check this out. And I'm like, yeah, no, I've already checked that. That's cool. Let's do this. Let's do that. And he's like, why are you awake? At 7. I was like,
why is he awake? Why is he awake at 3 a.m? Yeah, well, I'm similar when it comes to. I love telling people about how they can achieve certain things and how to avoid the pitfalls that I made as well. Yeah, actually, sometimes I like to not do that too much because people need their pitfalls. There's a great expression that I heard on a podcast about parenting, which said our role is to prepare the child for the road, not prepare the road for the child. And sometimes I apply the same thing to my clients. My job is to prepare my client for the journey that's ahead of them, not prepare the journey for them. So if I see a stumbling block, sometimes I've got to let them walk right into it, which I hate because I'm far too nice for that. But yeah, it's a tough one. But I've helped a ton of sorts of new podcasters. Well, even before they got their podcast going, and I've helped some ones that have already got it going about like how to grow it. If anyone is listening, they want the number one tip for how to make a podcast, how to grow your podcast. It's better for you to go on someone else's than it is for someone else to come on yours. Is my piece of advice, because when I go on someone else's, person gets 40 minutes, an hour of me, they hear me, and they're already a captive audience because they've already got that. Whereas if someone comes over to mine, that is, let's say someone from your audience comes over to mine, they don't really get much of a flavour for me during this interview. If they do, I'm not doing my job right. I mean, I do hijack the interviews sometimes, and it's like, I want to talk about this, but it is my show. Come on. But yeah, that's my number one tip for anyone out there that's thinking about starting a podcast is it would be better for you. You think to yourself, if I can just land this guest, if I can just land that guest. The biggest guests for me have not been the ones with the biggest followings. They've been the ones with the most resonant stories. And it's always been better for me. If I've had a guest on mine and I've been on theirs, it's always been better for me to go on theirs. My audience travel really, really well. So for you, I should expect, come on guys, don't let me down. Don't make a liar out of me. I should expect, it's really weird for me. looking at, like, you know, when you go onto Instagram and you see people and who they're following, and you go, and this, I love this. Yeah. I low key love this. So it's not even low key now. I'm saying it on a bloody podcast, but I love it when I go on and I see like that one of my local clients is following, say, Alan in Ireland, and they'd have never found out about him otherwise. And it's like, you know, it's I just love that, because again, collaboration, not competition, connecting people. Like I put up on I've recently updated the info on my podcast, and the 3 aims are it to kind of share mental health tips and tricks and advice, to share inspirational stories of other people's mental health, but also to help share other people who are doing tips and tricks and advice. And when you said before about social media being not social media, a therapist being like Tinder, I don't know if are you familiar with Paul McGregor? No. Okay, send him a t-shirt. Although actually he used to own a fashion magazine and everything, and he gave it all up for after he lost his dad to suicide, and he gave up all that. He chased after the money and all of the rest of that stuff for kind of to kind of cover his own wounds, basically. And he gave all that up to become a mental health advocate. But the guy is very well. Like I don't think I've ever seen him in a t-shirt. Actually, maybe when he's running. But there was a reason I mentioned him. Oh yeah, he's essentially vying for the exact same attention that I am within the market. Like he's doing corporate gigs. He's even, I mean, I'm a Liverpool supporter. Actually, so's he, but his mum was a Liverpool supporter. He's from Essex. It's weird. It's weird hearing an Essex accent on a Liverpool supporter. But he's been up and spoken at Anfield. Like, you know, he comes from Essex, and it's like, I'm 40 minutes away from it. And, so he is literally going for the same kind of gigs that I'm going for. But I get excited by connecting someone to him. I get excited by that, and I think it's all going to work. You know, I think it'll all work out eventually. Yeah. So actually, this wasn't supposed to be the next question. In light of that, one thing I actually like to do is, who are some people on social media that you think that people should go and check out?
So I'm trying to think of people that aren't already part of your following, maybe. Obviously we've got Mounty. We spoke about him a couple of times.
Mounty's he's still watching, so he's probably sat there fanboying right now.
That's me. Depends, really. Depends on what for. I mean, we have so many personal people that connect to us personally, and we've got less than half the following that you have, and we talk to probably 30 or 40 people a day, talking to us, messaging us, not necessarily all about mental health, but it's just sort of feeling that closeness to the brand. And a lot of people have said that it's the sort of content we're putting out there is very personal. It's not like this big corporate brand that just only has logos on stuff and is whatever. It's family run brand. So I don't really want to single anyone out, because
then you'll feel like you're missing someone off. I know that. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've just led with that, so you're okay. If you do not get mentioned in this, it doesn't mean that Sam doesn't like, love, or appreciate you. I did. In fact, actually, I'm going to say this now, because on the podcast the other day, I gave a ton of love to people who support me quite a lot. And one person, there's one person on Instagram, this guy called Nick Fox. He's now been mentioned twice. And there was a woman called Barbara Sweeting who actually reached out. I said, I think I'm not sure if she's old enough to be my mum. It turns out she is old enough to be my mum if she had me when she was 17. She'll probably lose it again because I've just mentioned her for a second time. But the one, and I don't even think he listens to the podcast, but I want to shout him out anyway. Is a guy called his name's Kevin, and I always think of him as Ginger Kev. Kev Lad Plays, he is on Twitter, and the amount of support that guy has given me to help get this stream off the ground has been unreasonable. I don't deserve it, and I'm just totally and utterly in awe every single time it happens. And you know, so I was listening. I don't listen back to my own podcasts, but I was thinking the other day, and I was like, I didn't shout Kev out. Like, and Kev's been he's been probably the biggest supporter of the last 4 months, and it's one of those things. It's like, it's gutting, isn't it? You think to yourself, oh, I didn't mention such and such, but please know, anyone that doesn't get mentioned if Sam does mention some people, it just means that when we're put under pressure under a short space of time, our brains go a little bit like mush.
They do. Yeah, I'm sorry. So for me, the people that have helped me the most, personally, although Mountie will say he hasn't because he thinks I'm helping him in some way, is genuinely Steve. And there's a couple of others that I feel that have, on my sort of personal journey and on work journey, I guess, building up the brand and actually making tops and how to do them and how to, that are there like Mountie is at 3 a.m, that I can just go, mate, what have I done, or what's this, or how do I do this? So there's Steph Waters, that she's my guru that I just look up to on everything, everything to do with clothing. Then obviously Steve. I've got somebody who's just gone into a social media blackout because he's a singer, but he doesn't. He's like you said. His worst thing about social media is that he checks figures and stats and stuff so much that it's when he hasn't got music to put out there, he feels like he's forcing content, and he's in sort of a headspace that he doesn't really want to be in.
Tell him to give me a shout. I could have a really good because I know how to fix this. I just don't do it for myself. But tell him to give me a shout, because I would absolutely love to have a chat to him about that. And I did put a video up about how to look after your mental health on social media when you are a content creator. I put a video up about it like a week or so ago. But yeah, I know his pain, and I'm on top of it, except for when I'm not.
That's So Ordell Music. So he's awesome. Grant is his real name, but he's awesome, and similar really to Steph, Steve, and Grant or Ordell is for me I think it was actually Steve that said something that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
Yeah.
And it sort of got me looking and thinking, actually, I'm quite proud of those people that I sort of look up to in certain aspects and for certain things. And if I am the average of those guys, that's pretty cool. I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah.
So and then sort of looking at what they do and trying to help pass it to somebody else, across to somebody else as well. But they're sort of my main 3, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, there's we covered that the five people you spend the most time with on the podcast probably about 2 years ago. It's not mine. It's not Steve's. It's not mine. We all stole everything from everyone. But it's definitely something worth reminding or remembering, because especially in the 21st century, people seem to think of that as like, well, what if I can't be around such and such? Well, it's been proven that it's actually the most, by consuming people, you become like, so if you were to listen to an absolute ton of me, if you're into that level of masochism, then you would actually, your thoughts would start to be influenced by me. Like, I listen to a ton of Gary Vee, and my thoughts start to become influenced by him. It's and that's the whole thing, is that if you the people you spend the most time with, if you think about listening to a podcast, if you listen, like, I listen to a ton of Joe Rogan, but I don't want to become exactly Joe Rogan, although I am really wanting to go bow hunting now, so maybe it's working.
Maybe it is influenced.
The thing is, like, before lockdown, I probably listened to like about 4 or 5 hours of Joe Rogan a week. It's like, well, am I talking to anyone else for 4 or 5? My wife, maybe, that's it. My kids collectively, maybe. Actually, my oldest, definitely. My youngest, by the way, he said earlier, fun fact, I'm still here listening to a podcast that I don't usually do. So I think this is the first episode of a podcast of any podcast, let alone mine, that he's listened to. So I'm hoping that he likes it. He's dropped some Minecraft emojis in the chat to keep us all going. But yeah, so that's the thing. If you think to yourself, oh well, I can't be around people like Sam or like Dave or like this legend Steve that they keep on talking about. I'm just really trying to kind of scratch his itch right now. I can't be like those people. It's like, well, actually, if those people put content out and you go and consume a lot of it, you can be. What's worth remembering with that is if you're consuming. I put a thing on Twitter the other day that said, you know, I think it was like 2004 that Gillian McKeith, was it, came out with the whole "You Are What You Eat" show. Dr. Gillian McKeith, where she came and checked the quality of your poo. And I'm like, well, in 2020, it's "You Are What You Tweet," and it's like that's more of a cancel culture thing. It's like if you tweet something, then it shows the true inner workings of your soul. But more, it's what you consume. You are what you consume. You are what you read. If you are what you eat physically, then mentally you are what you read or what you listen to. All of that is nutrition for your mind. And it's either good or bad nutrition. And if you're listening to a podcast of someone that is just negative all the time, that rants, I love a good rant. I think they're funny. I drop one in about every 50 episodes, maybe. Usually on my birthday when I've had too many beers. But if I couldn't be that person all the time, and I couldn't listen to someone like, you know, like even James Smith got a lot of time for him, got a lot of love for what he's done within the industry, but he's because of the sarcasm and the fact that he's literally just like being sarcastic at the microphone and the camera all the time. If I listen to him too much, then I kind of feel myself going in that direction. So be mindful of what you consume, because you are the average of the 5 people that you consume, not just that you spend time spending time with, but you are still spending time with someone if you are listening to them on a podcast, because their thoughts start to interact with your thoughts.
And I completely agree, and that's I think for me, because I do so much driving, as I said, when I'm driving, I'm normally listening to one of probably 2 or 3 people, one being Gary Vee, one being Eric Thomas. I just think he's awesome. And then a mixture of like podcasts that are like Beautiful Anonymous. I don't know if you've heard that, where it's just somebody talking, where they've got 60 minutes. They don't say who they are, what their name is or anything, and they just talk together about what's going on. He doesn't want to know where you are and try and narrow down who you are. But then for that hour, it's yours, and the phone will hang up at 60 minutes. You can hang up anywhere you want between it, and you just say it. It's
Beautiful Anonymous.
Beautiful Anonymous.
Who was the second person you said as well?
Eric Thomas.
Eric Thomas.
He's my my go-to motivation.
Okay, well those are 2 things that I've never come across, so I'll be checking those out as well. Where can people find more about you on social media and what you do?
Sure. So on social media, so on Instagram, we are BBrave Clothing UK, and it's the letter B and then Brave Clothing, so not B, it's the letter B, Brave Clothing UK. There's no other global BBrave Clothings, it's just we are BBrave Clothing UK, and on the website is bbraveclothing.com. So that's where we are. That's where we spend most of our time.
Awesome. 2 final questions before I let you go and get yourself some sleep and stay up until 3 a.m. and make some more t-shirts. I'm going to go with a couple of the questions that we've been asking on stream this weekend. And the question of the day yesterday was, what is your definition of success?
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? You could have pre-warned me on that. I could have written something nice.
I did, technically. It was on my social media yesterday. You should follow everything I say, obviously. I know what you talked about. I don't. I don't actually know what you talked about on social media yesterday. So don't call me out on that.
No, that's fine. So for me, it's actually all the small things. So for me, I have goals that I would love to achieve later down the line. They always change, and I'm quite happy for them to keep evolving and getting bigger and different and whatnot. But for me, it's success for me and for Be Brave is to all the very, very little things, and I document everything. So we've got almost like a ridiculous timeline of every single thing that we've achieved. So for me, it's being in the moment really, and celebrating those little wins, because that's what's going to make a success. And I think that's a mixture between me listening to Eric Thomas and a couple of other celebrities that have spoke about it as well. But me in 10 years now, if I said today, this is what I want to achieve in 10 years, when I get there, I'll be like, well, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, because I want to be there. So it's for me, it's something that's always moving. I'm happy that it's always evolving. And I get really excited about little wins, or day to day or week to week, maybe, wins that we sort of go through.
So with no preparation, you come along with a mic drop worthy answer like that.
Is that right?
I mean, no, that's better than all right. That's brilliant. I think there's I don't know if you ever come across my You Are Enough video. It talks about so many of the themes that we've talked about tonight. It's basically a video that I wrote to what I would say to my kids if the aliens were to pluck me off the planet tomorrow. And there's a bit in it that talks about, I've totally forgotten which bit I was talking about, because I started talking about aliens and I'm like, do we ever talk about aliens? But it talks about it does talk about kind of like the journey and celebrating the journey and all the rest of it. And in terms of that, it's the expression. There we go. I've finally circled my thoughts back around. It is late on a Sunday night, people. You guys are hearing this on a Wednesday, first thing in the morning when it's been delivered to you, but we made this late on a Sunday night. It talks about, and I've forgotten what I was talking about again already. Damn it! Okay, I'll come back. Yeah,
celebrating the little wins.
Oh, celebrating the little wins.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's oh no, it's okay. I've got it, and I'm going to say it this time. There's an expression that I say. We're often upset, unhappy because we say I'll be happy when, and I'll be happy when. The idea of the phrase "I'll be happy when," it's secretly saying I won't be happy until. So I'll be happy when I've made 500,000 in revenue. I won't be happy until I've made 500,000 in revenue. I'll be happy when Nike turn around and say your brand's better than mine. I won't be happy until that. I'll be happy when 700,000 people are screaming my name like at some live event. I won't be happy until then. And it's like, even smaller things like that. I'll be happy when I meet my soulmate. I won't be happy until then. It's like, and that means
that's not fair, is it?
No, it's like I'll be happy when kids might be thinking I'll be happy when I finish my GCSEs. It's like, well, if you're in year 6 or what year 5, you now just said I'm not going to be happy for 5 years. I'll be happy when I've found a new job. I'm not going to be happy in the search for a new job. All of this stuff, and I think that's what you've just said. Then really kind of goes back to that for me. And it's like, what? If you define success as what you've just basically said without saying it is that everyone else's idea of success, not everyone else's, but a lot of other people's idea of success, I am successful when. And you're saying, I'm finding the success along the way.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. The final question is, did you ever watch Room 101?
Yeah.
Right. So if you could remove one thing from the world, and only one thing, what would it be? And why?
Oh, no. It really put me on the spot now. Stigmas. It might be an obvious answer, I don't know, but the pressure we put on ourselves, if you could remove that, if that is stigma, I don't know really, I guess, but if you could remove the negative pressure you put on yourself, it'd just be such a better place, wouldn't it? I don't mind having pressure and in certain things. I'm trying to explain it without getting rid of pressure, because pressure is incredible. It's great. But having it's quite a big thing, isn't it? I suppose getting rid of negative connotations and stuff. Stigmas around things that most people believe there shouldn't be a stigma. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's really in line with kind of what the answers that both me and Mounty gave on the stream earlier today, and what ours supposed came down to was poor self-awareness. Because if everyone had great self-awareness, first of all, I meet so many people that are awesome and cannot see it. because their self-awareness isn't there. They don't see how amazing they are. And at the same time, the ones that think that they've got self-awareness and think that they're awesome quite often are the ones that they're probably the ones that need to hear "be kind," right? So yeah, and Mounty answered something very, very similar when we were chatting on stream earlier today. But there's been some great answers come back on the stream, and especially and also for the success thing. There's been what I love about these questions is just hearing so many different points of view on them. And I think stigma is a fantastic one, because you are not just like, you didn't just say the stigma on mental health. I don't think it's a cliched answer. No one's given me that answer yet. But the stigma around anything, everything, there are stigmas around race, there are stigmas around, gender, there are stigmas around sex, there are stigmas around money, there are stigmas around mental health, obviously. If we were to remove all of those stigmas and actually get to the point where we have normalized conversations where we can talk about anything in an open forum, and
what we're all trying to do, right?
What's what we're well. I mean, I could go off on one for an hour about that. I think it's what we all say we're trying to do. I think a lot of people don't really think about what a normalized conversation is when they say they want to normalize the conversation around mental health. And it's like, and I understand it, because with a conversation around mental health, it's like a fully 100% normalized conversation around mental health might not be a fully 100% safe conversation around mental health. So it does get a bit messy. But yeah, as I say, I could go off on that for about an hour. And I won't. I'll just read out the last few comments that we've got on the stream. Actually, were you about to say something?
Yeah, it's a very small thing. It's one of the other things that I sort of came across as well, and sort of with our brand mission being that we want to get people talking and not let the next generation suffer in silence, is that I don't, as much as I want everyone to be able to talk about the mental health, I don't want it to become a dangerous place where you talk about it and people go, oh, okay, and then forget about it. I don't want it to be so normalized. I don't know how to phrase it really.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you don't want it to become so normalized that it becomes a throwaway part of the conversation. Because many of the things that are normalized, the weather is normalized, right? But it's also a very incidental part of a conversation, and it's forgotten about. So yeah, we want it to be normalized but important, normalized but safe. And this is the whole thing, is I think people just, I just want people to think critically about what that actually means. So like that might be me questioning a day one time, is what does a normalized conversation actually mean, and see what people think about that, because I think people have different ideas. Right, I'll just basically Mounty and Colin. I don't know if you know Colin. But Mounty said, the way I see it, if someone sees content from one person, it's just you. If they start seeing content from others you promote as well, it starts to become more of a normal kind of content they see, and then they buy into it more. So yeah, if there's people are seeing more mental health content, then they think this is more commonplace and therefore more normalized. But at the same time, as we've just said, then we want it to be normalized, but still important. And Colin said that the average of 5-thing phrase has travelled so far, at which point Mounty said that he actually got that from Colin. So it's like, so we've all got it from somewhere. Colin, let me know where you got it from. I'm interested now. And then I think because we gave him too many compliments, he's also put in there saying, you're crying, I'm not crying. But Sam, thank you for such an awesome chat tonight, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Remind us one more time where people can find that Instagram link.
Yeah, sure. The letter B and then BBrave Clothing UK. That's me.
Awesome. This will obviously be tagged in everything that I put up on social media. And as always, if you master the mind, you can master anything. And normally I say, and sometimes master the mind can start with, and I have something witty to say, but right now I haven't got anything. Sometimes mastering the mind can start with buying a really nice purple t-shirt that says Be Brave on it. that's my final plug of the night, and then we're all done. All right, so thank you very much, Sam, and I will catch you soon, and we'll talk about that collaboration.